Ladies and gentlemen, you ever notice how in a crowded room some people don't even try, and yet everyone's eyes keep drifting back to them? They're not louder, they're not funnier, they're not even trying to compete, and still they own the space. There's a psychology behind that, a way to get noticed in a group without chasing it, without forcing it, without saying more than you need to. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And once you understand it, you'll never be invisible again. The room is buzzing. Conversations overlap like background music, and she's in the middle of it all, laughing, listening, engaging. You can see she's got options. People around her are competing for her attention, and every move you make either blends you into the noise or separates you from it. Most guys think they need to be louder, funnier, or flashier to stand out. That's the trap. They chase attention instead of commanding it. And that's where psychology flips the game. See, human attention isn't just about what you say, it's about how you make people feel when you say it. The truth is, in a group, most people are unconsciously mirroring each other's energy. They speak faster when everyone else is talking fast. They laugh when others laugh, even if they didn't hear the joke. They nod along just to keep pace. But the person who interrupts that rhythm, not with noise but with presence, changes the dynamic instantly. That's the trick, not to fight for attention like everyone else, but to slow the room down without asking for permission. People notice contrast before content. If everyone's talking at level 10 and you're calm, controlled, and deliberate, you stand out without competing. You create a pocket of space where curiosity lives, and curiosity is the gateway to attention. When you walk up to a group, don't rush in with your story or your joke. First, see and notice who's talking the most, who's just listening, where the emotional energy is flowing. That's your map. Most people skip this part because they're too focused on being liked instantly. But here's the truth. If you look like you're in control of yourself, people assume you're in control of the room, whether you are or not. And assumption is a powerful currency. Then when you speak, don't speak to everyone at once. That's the rookie move. Speak to the group through someone. Pick one person, make direct but relaxed eye contact, and deliver your words as if it's just the two of you. Here's why this works. Our brains are wired to pay attention to direct connection. Even if someone else isn't the one you're speaking to, they feel pulled in because they want to be the one receiving that level of focus. It's human nature to want to be chosen, even if it's only for a few seconds. Now, the tone. This is where most guys blow it. They think volume equals authority. Wrong. Volume equals effort, and effort signals that you're trying. Trying too hard is the opposite of magnetic. Lower your tone slightly, speak from your chest, and pause between sentences like you have nowhere better to be. That pause, that's not dead air, that's control. It forces the listener's brain to lean in, to anticipate, to fill the silence with attention. Body language, simple. Open stance, shoulders back, weight evenly distributed. No crossing your arms or fidgeting. Keep your hands visible. Why? Because the oldest part of the human brain associates hidden hands with threat. Visible hands equals safe. Safe equals trust. And trust is the soil where attraction grows. Here's the psychological kicker. When you're in a group, attention is contagious. If one person focuses on you, others will follow. This is called the bandwagon effect. The moment you get one person fully engaged, others' curiosity spikes, and they start wondering, what's so interesting about this guy? And their eyes drift toward you without even realizing it. You want to layer this with something subtle, acknowledgement. If someone speaks while you're in the group, don't just nod. Turn slightly toward them, hold their eye contact for a beat longer than normal, and give a slow, intentional smile. You're not just listening, you're valuing. This creates a feedback loop. People feel more significant when they're with you, and significance is addictive. They start wanting more of it. The key is to never appear like you're chasing the spotlight. Your energy should say, I'm already good, with or without your attention. People crave what's scarce, and self-assurance is one of the rarest things in a noisy room. That doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means your sense of worth isn't up for negotiation. Here's a pro-level layer to this. the drop-in. In a group conversation, there will be moments when the energy spikes, everyone laughing or reacting at once. Most people ride that wave and talk over it. You, on the other hand, wait. Let the noise peak, then as it dips, you drop your comment in at a calm, steady pace. Everyone's brain is shifting from high energy to low energy at that moment, and your voice becomes the bridge. That bridge gets walked across every single time. And don't underestimate the power of selective responses. You don't have to respond to everything. Sometimes the most magnetic move is to let others' comments pass without adding yours. This subtly signals that your words aren't cheap, they're intentional. The fewer you speak, the more weight they carry. But the biggest psychological advantage you can have in a group is this: make someone else feel seen in a way no one else in the circle is doing. People are constantly half listening, planning what to say next, or distracted by their phones. If you're the one who fully locks in, asks a real follow-up question, and listens without breaking eye contact, you create an emotional contrast they'll remember long after. The conversation's over. You're not trying to dominate the group, you're trying to anchor it. Anchors are stable, consistent, unshaken by the waves. And in a group setting, stability is magnetic because it makes people feel safe. Safety makes people relax. Relaxation opens the door for connection. Now, the subtle flex: don't hover when the attention's on you. Once you've made your point or shared your story, redirect the spotlight to someone else. Ask them a question, get them talking. This does two things. It shows you're confident enough to give attention away, and it makes people associate you with the good feeling of being listened to. And the more people associate you with good feelings, the more they look for you in a room. Another tool, the micro-expression. When someone in the group says something interesting, let a half smile or a slight eyebrow raise flicker across your face before you speak. These small, controlled expressions suggest you're processing what they said on a deeper level. People love being around someone who seems like they get them. One more thing, most overlook: positioning. Don't stand directly in the center or directly outside the group. Position yourself just slightly offset, close enough to be included, but with a sense that you're not dependent on the group to exist. This physical subtlety creates a psychological pull. It says, I'm part of this, but I'm also my own world, and people want access to that world. If you layer all of this, the scan, the direct connection, the calm tone, the pauses, the acknowledgement, the selective speaking, the stability, the give and take of attention, the micro expressions and the positioning, you stop being another voice in the crowd. You become the gravitational center, not because you fought for it, but because you understood the psychology of it. And in a room full of noise, the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are will always be the loudest thing there. Because when you think about it, the most captivating people in a group aren't the ones who work the hardest to be noticed. They're the ones who let people notice them. They're not rushing. They're not performing. They're not desperately scanning faces for approval. They move at their own speed, and that speed is always just a little slower than the chaos around them. That difference is what draws people in. You can practice this anywhere. The next time you're in a busy space, notice the natural tempo of the room. Conversations bounce at a certain rhythm, laughter breaks at certain intervals, voices rise and fall together. Then, intentionally step half a beat out of sync. Not in a way that's awkward or jarring, but in a way that shows you're not caught in the current. When you're not swept away, you become the shoreline everyone notices without realizing why. There's also a psychological truth here. People respect what respects itself. If you speak like your words matter, they will matter. If you hold yourself like your presence is valuable, it becomes valuable. And the reverse is also true. If you treat your presence like it's disposable, the room will too. Every move you make is a quiet broadcast of how you expect to be treated. The trick isn't just presence, it's timing. In a group, moments come and go like waves. You don't need to catch every wave. You wait for the right one. When a high-energy moment dips, when the group naturally slows for breath, that's when you lean in slightly, make eye contact with your chosen listener, and say something worth their attention. Even a simple sentence delivered with calm precision in that space will land harder than a 10-minute story delivered in the middle of noise. And here's something most people never realize. Attention isn't just what you receive. It's what you give and then reclaim. When you give someone focused attention in a group, they consciously feel a debt. Not an uncomfortable one, but the kind humans are wired to repay. That repayment often comes in the form of them giving you their attention back even more fully than before. You can amplify this with what I call the anchored compliment. This isn't flattery. Flattery is light, forgettable, and often transparent. An anchored compliment is rooted in something specific they've just said or done. It's short, intentional, and tied to the moment. That's a sharp way to look at it. I like how you explained that. That's a solid point. Not only does this validate the other person, but it also positions you as someone who listens carefully and acknowledges value. In a group setting, that's rare. The way you use your eyes in a group is also a powerful lever. Don't dart around like you're searching for the next best thing. Keep your gaze steady, let it land, stay for a second longer than expected, and then shift. That extra second communicates patience, confidence, and certainty, three qualities that make people feel they're in the presence of someone who knows their own worth. Another layer to this is how you handle interruptions. In a group, people will talk over you, they'll jump in, they'll cut you off. Most respond by either backing down completely or fighting to be heard. The more powerful move, pause, let them finish. Then, without raising your voice, continue exactly where you left off as if the interruption never happened. This subtle control tells everyone watching that you're unshaken, and unshaken people are naturally seen as leaders in the moment. There's also an art to humor in this setting. Humor can be magnetic if it's effortless and understated. The best laughs you'll get in a group aren't from big, rehearsed punchlines. They're from quick, subtle observations that show you're present and in tune with the moment. A well-placed, quiet remark at the right time can get a stronger reaction than shouting the loudest joke in the circle. It's not about performing. It's about responding in a way that feels organic and confident. And when you do make people laugh, don't overstay in that moment. Too many people ride the high and keep going until it gets stale. Say your line, get the reaction, and then let the conversation breathe. That restraint makes people remember the moment more vividly because you didn't milk it dry. Positioning yourself physically in a group matters more than people think. If you're always craning your neck to be heard or leaning too far in, it signals you're chasing the center. Instead, stand or sit so you're comfortable but not overly eager. Angled slightly toward the group, not directly squared, it gives the sense you're engaged but never trapped. That micro shift in body language sends a macro message. You're part of this, but you could just as easily be fine without it. And here's a deeper level. The psychology of scarcity. When you're in a group, don't give all your energy to it. Be fully present when you're there, but also step away before your presence becomes overfamiliar. Excuse yourself briefly, interact with someone else, grab a drink. When you return, the group sees you with fresh eyes. The contrast between absence and return is powerful because humans notice change, and you just reintroduced yourself without saying a word. There's also the matter of storytelling in a group setting. Long, winding stories can lose people fast when there are multiple conversations competing for attention. Instead, make your stories tight. Start close to the climax. Drop small hooks that keep people leaning forward, and always end earlier than they expect. That little, wait, that's it, feeling leaves them wanting more, and wanting more is exactly where you want them. Silence is another underestimated weapon. If someone asks you a question or makes a comment toward you in the group, don't rush to fill the space. Take a beat. That 1-second pause makes your eventual answer feel more considered, more deliberate. It also builds anticipation, which is another way of saying it builds attention. Even your micro movements matter. A slow sip of your drink before responding, adjusting your jacket or rolling your sleeves calmly while someone else is talking. These aren't distractions. They're subtle signals that you're unpressured and self-contained. You're not scrambling to react. You're grounded. Here's where most people go wrong. They mistake taking up space for taking control. In reality, control comes from composure, not volume. The person who can remain calm, engaged, and measured while everyone else speeds up becomes the emotional anchor of the group. And emotional anchors are remembered long after the noise fades. There's also a feedback loop that forms when you apply this psychology. As you control your presence and timing, the group unconsciously adjusts to you. Conversations slow slightly when you speak. People pause before responding to you. The energy begins to orbit your pace instead of the other way around. This isn't dominance, it's influence. And influence is far more powerful because it works without force. Finally, always remember, in a group, the one thing rarer than loud confidence is quiet certainty. When you walk in with the mindset that you don't need to prove anything, you stop competing. And when you stop competing, you stand out without trying. That's when the psychology works in your favor. When they find themselves giving you their attention without you ever having to ask for it. Because once you've reached that point where attention comes to you without effort, the real skill is in holding it without suffocating it. Attention is like a balloon. Too much grip and it pops, too little and it drifts away. The balance comes from knowing when to lean in and when to lean back, when to engage fully and when to let the moment breathe. The mistake many people make after gaining attention in a group is that they start overcompensating. They think, I've got it now, I need to keep feeding it. But here's the truth. The people who hold attention the longest are the ones who are comfortable giving it away. It's counterintuitive, but when you direct the focus towards someone else with genuine curiosity, the group sees you as secure, generous, and in control. Those qualities are magnetic because they're rare in competitive social spaces. You can amplify this effect by asking what I call invitational questions. These aren't surface-level autopilot questions like, what do you do, or where are you from? They're open enough to allow expression, but specific enough to feel intentional. Questions like, what got you interested in that, or what was the best part about it? Signal that you're not just passing time, you're actually listening. The subtext is, your thoughts matter here, and people lean toward whoever makes them feel that way. The group dynamic works on a subtle economy of attention. People constantly trade it back and forth, sometimes consciously, often unconsciously. If you understand this, you can position yourself as the one who sets the exchange rate. That means you don't speak every time you have something to say. You wait until it's worth more. You don't respond to everything directed at you. You respond to what moves the conversation forward. And when you do speak, you connect your point back to something someone else said earlier. That callback shows you were paying attention the whole time, which instantly increases the perceived value of your contribution. Even the way you stand in a group communicates your place in that economy. If you're angled too far inward, it can signal neediness, like you're trying to secure your spot. If you're angled too far outward, it can signal disinterest or arrogance. The sweet spot is a slightly open stance, balanced between inclusion and independence. It says, I'm here because I want to be, not base, because I need to be. That subtle difference shifts the power dynamic without a single word. One thing people underestimate is the value of shared moments. In a group, moments pass quickly, but if you're present enough to notice something funny, surprising, or unusual, and you share that observation quietly with one person next to you, you create a micro-connection inside the larger dynamic. That shared thread can make someone feel uniquely connected to you even in a crowd, and that feeling tends to linger. There's also power in being the calm in unpredictable moments. In groups, things happen. Interruptions, awkward silences, sudden shifts in topic. Most people react instinctively, scrambling to adapt, but if you remain grounded and unfazed, people start to look to you as the stabilizing force. That's influence without announcing it. People will defer to the person who seems least rattled, especially when others are unsure of what to do next. And when the conversation starts to splinter, because in most groups it eventually will, you can choose where to focus your attention. Instead of chasing the loudest pocket of energy, notice the quieter exchanges happening at the edges. Often the most meaningful and memorable connections form in those smaller moments. You can flow between the group and those pockets naturally, and that adaptability makes you memorable to both sides. Your voice plays an even bigger role here than you might think. In a group, sound competes with sound, so people instinctively raise their volume to match. But if you resist that urge and instead lower your tone slightly, people lean in. That leaning in is physical proof that you've drawn them closer without chasing them. And once someone leans in for you, they remember the feeling of wanting to hear you more clearly. That's the psychological hook you want. Even the way you exit a group mat, TERS, most people drift away awkwardly or slip out unnoticed. If you leave with purpose, saying a brief direct goodbye to one or two people, offering a light remark that lands well, you control your final impression. That exit becomes the note they remember, and it primes them to notice you faster the next time you're around. You can also use something I call delayed engagement. It's simple. In the first few minutes of joining a group, say very little. Just observe, respond minimally, and let others fill the air. Then, when you do speak, it feels like the moment you've been holding back for. People naturally place more value on something they had to wait for. It's the same reason a pause before a punchline makes it hit harder. Anticipation increases impact. The beauty of all this is that it works because it's natural, not forced. You're not putting on an act. You're removing the extra noise that most people carry into social spaces. You're focusing on presence over performance. And because that's rare, it gets noticed. You can push this even further by controlling what I call micro shifts in your attention. When someone in the group is speaking, you might keep your body oriented toward them, but let your eyes scan briefly across others in the group, then return. That small motion makes it seem like you're not just locked into one exchange, but aware of the whole dynamic. Awareness is attractive because it signals competence, and competence makes people feel safe. Another layer, patience with pauses. If a conversation in the group hits a lull, most people rush to fill it. But sometimes, letting the pause breathe invites someone else to share something deeper or more interesting than what would have been said in a rush. You become the person who creates space for better conversations to happen, and people remember the ones who make them feel heard in ways others don't. When you master this rhythm, speaking with way, HT, listening with intention, moving with purpose, the group starts to adjust around you. People angle their bodies toward you without realizing it. Their responses to your words become more deliberate. Even their laughter starts to come a fraction of a second faster when you're the one who triggered it. That's the subtle mark of influence, when the room shifts, not because you demanded it, but because you set the tone and everyone else fell into it naturally. And the truth is, this isn't about tricks, it's about principles. The principle that presence beats performance, that timing beats volume, that calm beats chaos, and that in a world full of people trying to be seen, the one who sees others first ends up being seen the most. Once you internalize that, you stop walking into groups thinking, how do I get their attention? And start thinking, how do I make this moment feel better for everyone here? And ironically, that's exactly what pulls the attention to you. Not because you asked for it, but because you've become the kind of person people want to give it to. And when you realize that, something shifts. You stop thinking of attention as this prize you're chasing, and you start treating it like a side effect of who you are and how you carry yourself. That's when it becomes effortless. Because the moment you stop trying to prove you belong, you actually start belonging. You're not in the group to survive socially, you're there because you chose to be. That choice changes your energy, and energy is what people respond to first, long before they even process your words. Energy is contagious, but here's the thing, not all energy is created equal. Most people in groups feed off reactive energy. They're mirroring whatever is happening around them without realizing it. If the group is loud, they get louder. If the group is tense, they get sharper. But if you can walk into that same group and project centered, grounded energy, you break the mirror effect. Suddenly, you're the source, not the reflection. And sources attract. One of the most underrated moves in this whole dynamic is the controlled shift in focus. Every so often, especially when you've been speaking or the group has been locked in with you, deliberately break the attention loop. Let someone else's point take center stage. Redirect the conversation toward them. It's not about being selfless, it's about showing you don't need to hoard the spotlight to feel relevant. That move communicates security in a way nothing else can. It also builds reciprocity. When you elevate someone else in a group, they'll almost always return the gesture. They'll bring the conversation back to you, sometimes in ways that feel even more powerful because it's someone else telling the group you matter, not you telling them yourself. That's a form of social proof you can't fake. There's a psychological layer here too. People are drawn to the person who seems to see more than everyone else. When you comment on something subtle, like the way someone phrased a story or a small shared moment in the group, it shows you're not just absorbing the surface. You're paying attention at a depth most people aren't. And depth is rare. When you display it, you become the contrast to the surface-level noise that dominates most group conversations. Another thing to understand: group attention works in waves. It doesn't stay fixed on one person forever. It moves. The goal isn't to hold it nonstop. The goal is to create moments where, when it does swing back to you, it lands harder than it did before. That means being okay with stepping back, letting it drift, and then re-engaging at the right time. That patience is part of the presence you're building. One of the simplest yet most powerful ways to re-engage is with a callback. Bring up something someone said earlier, maybe even an hour ago, and weave it into the current moment. That shows you've been tracking T's. He groups flow, and it connects past and present in a way that makes people feel the conversation has more depth because you're in it. It's a subtle way of saying, I was here the whole time and I'm not just reacting, I'm connecting. And when the group starts to splinter into side conversations, don't rush to pull it back together. Instead, choose your lane. Sometimes the most magnetic moments happen in those smaller side threads where you can have more intentional exchanges. But here's the trick. While you're engaged in that smaller conversation, still stay aware of the larger group energy. If something shifts in the room, you want to be the person who notices first. Awareness is social currency. The rhythm you bring to your speech also matters more than people think. In groups, everyone tends to talk at a fairly constant pace. You can create a subtle spike in attention just by changing your rhythm mid-sentence. Slow down unexpectedly. Pause in places that aren't obvious. Then, speed up slightly when you're building to a point. That shift forces people's brains to recalibrate to you, which pulls their focus back in. Your expressions should follow the same principle. Most people have a single default facial expression they wear in group settings, either overly animated or overly neutral. You can stand out just by letting your expressions evolve naturally with the conversation. A slow smile when someone makes a sharp observation. A thoughtful tilt of the head when something interesting lands. The key is subtle, genuine changes that match the moment without looking forced. And when you find yourself holding the floor in a group, resist the urge to fill every second. Let moments breathe. Sometimes the silence after a sentence is where the real connection happens. That's when people absorb what you just said instead of racing to respond. And if the silence is for just a beat longer than expected, you've created anticipation, which makes the next thing you say feel even more important. One of the most telling traits you can display in a group is adaptability without losing yourself. If the conversation suddenly turns to something you're not an expert in, you don't have to pretend. Instead, shift into curiosity. Ask sharp, specific questions. People respect someone who can step into the listener's role without losing their confidence. It shows you're there to engage, not just to dominate. You'll also notice that the people who maintain long-term influence in group settings are the ones who don't treat every interaction like a transaction. They're not keeping score. They're not pushing for an outcome. They're investing in the moment for the sake of the moment. That lack of hidden agenda is felt even if no one consciously names it, and it makes people trust you faster. The way you handle moments of uncertainty is another quiet power move. If someone says something unexpected or the group laughs at something you missed, don't scramble to catch up. Smile, take a breath and let it pass before re-entering. That calmness communicates that you're not dependent on being perfectly in sync to feel comfortable. Comfort in small misalignments is the mark of someone who can handle the bigger waves too. The small shared rituals matter as well. It could be clinking glasses when someone shares good news, or leaning in slightly when someone lowers their voice. These micro rituals create connection because they signal you're tuned into the shared experience. And when people feel you're aligned with the moment, they naturally give you more of themselves. Your presence in a group is less about the total minutes you speak and more about the quality of the moments you create. A single, well-timed remark that makes the group pause, laugh, or reflect will be remembered far longer than a flood of forgettable chatter. And the irony is, when you focus on creating those moments instead of chasing constant attention, you actually get more attention over time. The other thing is, don't be afraid to let your attention wander for a second. Look around the room, notice something outside the immediate circle, then bring that observation back to the group. It could be a comment on someone arriving, something happening in the background, or a light observation about the environment. These moments show you're not locked into a tunnel. You're aware of the bigger picture. That bigger picture awareness draws people to you because it makes you seem more in control of your surroundings. And finally, understand that in group settings, people remember less of what was said and more of how they felt around you. Did they feel seen? Did they feel at ease? Did they feel the conversation lifted them instead of draining them? If the answer is yes, they'll remember you. They'll look for you next time, and they'll give you their attention again, not because you asked for it, but because without even realizing it, they've decided you're the kind of person whose presence changes the room.